What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the ninth album by rock band Marilyn Manson. Basically, this project is called The Pale Emperor, and it came out in the winter of 2015. The thing about this particular project was Marilyn Manson was starting to get a resurgence in the early 2010s with their particular album from 2012, the Born Villain album, which is a pretty, I didn't give that album a relatively heralded score, but there were music critics and folks like that, this public opinion that they felt like Marilyn Manson kind of cast himself back into the spotlight after some albums that weren't well that after some albums that weren't that well received, like their 2007 album Eat Me, Drink Me, and then their 2009 album The High End of Low, both of which back in 2015, 2016, I gave 10s out of 10. I particularly appreciate those albums. I have to say, it's been a long while since I've listened to those in particular, but I have to say, I'd probably still have like a favorable attitude towards those, I'd have to say, but particularly between those two albums not doing as well, and then the last Marilyn Manson album of like his particular supposed heyday was Golden Age of Grotesque from 2003, and then he took 4 years to until 2007 when he came back with a couple not as good reception type albums. It really wasn't until like the early and mid 2010s that Marilyn Manson kind of got cast back into the spotlight. But this is another one that really had some heraldment about it. This is another one that had some pretty good reception and was seen as one of Marilyn Manson's best. I appreciate the concept behind it. This particular album is not going to get a 10 out of 10 for me, but it's definitely going to get pretty close. The reason why it's a short project here, just the concept, if you really don't like every single song on here, it kind of detracts from the concept as far as that pitch goes. But I will say this is a very haunting album. This is one of the most definingly haunting Marilyn Manson albums I could think of, at least in terms of the sonic aspect of it. I'd have to say the instrumentation on this particular album is not to be overlooked. I'd have to say it's just a great concept. It's just some real ghastly tunes on here. I feel like Marilyn Manson's songwriting is pretty impactful as far as that pitch goes. Most of the qualities about this particular album by Marilyn Manson is on point. I'd say most of this, the songwriting, the instrumentation, the band work, pitches like that, just the song topics, some of those type pitches are 10s out of 10 in terms of that relative pitch. It's just kind of the concept that there's just a couple dozen here as far as that pitching goes, but there's only 10 songs as far as that particular gun goes. That's just the concept. But for the most part, this is a pretty visceral album. I'd say it's overall pretty sheer just in terms of the impact of it. Now, there were controversies that Marilyn Manson kind of faced just between the concept of his haunting kind of persona and the Columbine type stuff from way back in 1999 and 2000. Some of those type affairs of him just being just the Marilyn Manson band being a controversial band back in the 90s as far as that pitch can happen. But this is still to be appreciated here. I definitely feel like this is just I feel like this particular album is just a dark aesthetic that has some makeshift on here. It's a pretty relatively work shift type album. I'd say there's definitely some turn up type songs on here, but I feel like some of the cast typeness, there's a couple songs on here like Deep Six and some of those type ones, and there's another one like a little bit of Deep Six and a little bit of the third single, Cupid Carries a Gun, which has a relative pitch of just kind of being, just kind of has the relative pitch of being like some haunting, kind of grim, dark makeshift as far as that pitch goes. Just perfect for late September to about November as far as that pitch goes. Do appreciate the concept. This is a very composed and eloquent Marilyn Manson. I just like the concept of it. It's not really as this is not really as ferocious and as feisty as like he was on like Hollywood or Antichrist Superstar, some of those type ones. It's a little bit has some of the drug addled type appeal of Mechanical Animals. He's just a little bit more calm and lambent and just more composed on this particular product. And it doesn't have like the ferocious kind of metal ferocity of like the Golden Age of Grotesque, I'd have to say, but this has like the sadistic kind of more comprised kind of this ghastly type appeal of albums like Born Villain and Mechanical Animals. Just the drug addledness of Mechanical Animals with like the haunting kind of gloom and this overall brooding type feel of the Born Villain album, I'd have to say, with a little bit of like the creepy aesthetic of Eat Me, Drink Me, I'd have to say in particular. So it's just kind of the concept. It kind of comprises some of those particular projects. Now, I don't remember Eat Me, Drink Me as much. I do occasionally listen to that one, but I don't remember the High End of Low because I haven't purchased that particular one. I probably need to get around to purchasing that one, but I would have to say it's just a good compression, some of those particular type albums. But really, if you're looking for like the ferocious kind of crazed Marilyn Manson on songs like The Beautiful People and like fight songs, some of those type pitches from like his 90s and early 2000s days, it doesn't really have that on full display. But this is definitely an inspired Marilyn Manson. It's just kind of a different comprisement as far as that pitch kind of goes. But yeah, there were 3 singles out this particular product, and there were some songs like there was a song that was in like the John Wick. There was like a song that was in like the John Wick movie as far as that pitch goes. There were a bunch of ones. Wikipedia has a number of song articles. Wikipedia has a number of articles written about the songs on this particular product, so it was kind of a big deal around this particular time. It was one of the ones just like Born Villain that kind of got them back into the spotlight as far as being like a band to pay attention attention to just within the aspect of it, which is a pretty good pitch. But yeah, so yeah, there were 3 singles off this particular album. There were some promotional singles, but I will just talk about those in like the standard format. So that's just the concept about it. But basically, the first single is Third Day of a 7-Day Binge. This is a really brilliant song, I'd have to say. Just really appreciate this one. It's like a pepped up, kind of crisply haunting gloom of a song. Third Day of a 7-Day Binge is a really superb type song, I'd have to say. It's like a pepped up, kind of crisply haunting gloom of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a brilliant song title, I'd have to say, and just overall strong snarl that this song particularly kind of has. This one has like the snap. Reminds me of like the Mechanical Animals days by Marilyn Manson. Doesn't really have the ferocity on this particular one, but it just has that real oozing type appeal and charismatic type appeal that just works extremely well. I'd say it's a very haunting type one. It says that dark aesthetic, this typical kind of Marilyn Manson with just like the atmosphere, just being a great hangout type song. Nice dance snap about it. This is a brilliant single. This is definitely a song that needs to be played on the radio, rock radio, since it's just between like about late August, about early December. I'd say this is a brilliant type one. It's a very inspired Marilyn Manson here. This just has a brilliant song title, like I was saying. Just the aspect behind this particular song, it just has so much dark and moroseness about it. There's just not many songs that capture this overall type of appeal that just works within that extremity. Which is a pretty awesome concept. For the most part, this just really has like that overall aspect of just being able to nail it just as sheerly as it did. So I like the fact that Marilyn Manson kind of had like some dance songs on here. It's kind of an interesting concept that he kind of provided like some nightclub songs. Like I do feel like the Golden Age of Grotesque kind of did that. But in terms of most of this is less of like a mosh pit and kind of headbanging project, more of just like a kind of simmering, just kind of nightclub type feel, just that has some of that dance type vibes. It just a basic kind of almost like meandering and kind of kickback as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. Just some good kind of snap to kind of have just in like a relative kind of venue just aspect that's not so much just like typical kind of like this normal for rock bars or rock clubs as far as that pitch kind of goes. This is more nightclub, just almost places where you would hear rap songs and dance clubs, just where you'd hear EDM and like electronica and rave and that sort of stuff within that appeal. It's very night bound in addition to some of the work shift on here. But there's like 4 or 5 songs off this particular project. The Third Day of a 7-Day Binge is one of those. Deep Six is the second single. This is another nice one. This is like a morose kind of overcast autumn day malaise, I'd have to say in particular. This is like some superb makeshift trudge with like a nasty usual Manson energy, I'd have to say. So the chorus definitely has some of that fight. The chorus energy of Deep Six has some of that feisty Marilyn Manson energy, like songs like Fight Song and The Beautiful People, some of those type ones, and some of the ones like the ones off the Golden Age of Grotesque, like Mob Scene, some of those type ones that had to say pretty good concept, kind of get some of that. But this is just some great makeshift type songs here. Just really appreciate the concept. This is a very dark type one. Really appreciate the concept. This is a very morose and morbid type one to kind of get here. This is virtually like a great concept for like some crisp kind of Dracula type weather and like the cooler aspects as far as that pitch goes. It's looking nice and like the autumn as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just kind of definitely some vehicle bound type ones, but that works pretty damn well within that pitch. I would definitely have to say some excellent concepts to kind of have some vehicle bound kind of Marilyn Manson just for like cruising around and just having some good commerce and just outing activity just within the autumn as far as that pitching goes. This is another great song to kind of hear on the radio. And then Cupid Carries a Gun is the third single. It's another nice one, I'd have to say. It's like a simmering kind of step out and like a morose sense of pep, I'd have to say in particular. There are some peppy songs on here. It's just an interesting concept that there is some pep about this. It's not the usual gloom and ghastliness of Marilyn Manson. He does kind of feel inspired a bit to kind of have some jive and say, I'm not just going to be morose and just kind of in a morbid kind of mood and mode as far as that pitching goes, just with the usual somberness. I mean, it is grim and it maintains that aesthetic, but it has the least the pep saying that you have some spark to the personality as far as the pitching goes, which I do appreciate the concept of. This has like a nice grim sheen with like some vanilla makeshift about it, I'd have to say. So this one's kind of a little bit country rock, I'd have to say, kind of similar to Marilyn Manson's 2020 album, which is a pretty good pitch. Interesting concept, kind of get some of this, just really kind of outback, this kind of more simmering stretcher that goes along with that pitch, but it's just a good concept, kind of get some of this appeal. Good 1-2 punch with these makeshift type songs on here. It's just an excellent, interesting concept. So yeah, that's the concept about the singles on here. There were 3 singles, which is pretty good, just because normally Marilyn Manson albums past like 2003 or so only really have about 2 singles. But I'm glad that he was inspired enough to put out more promotion, because for the most part, the promotion on later Marilyn Manson albums wraps up pretty quickly, I'd have to say. But yeah, there's 10 songs on this particular album, The Pale Emperor, and out of those 10, I wound up recommending 8. That's what I talk about. It's just not liking this 1 or 2 songs kind of natches the score from getting a 10 out of 10. This album's going to get a 9 out of 10, but I kind of look after it. The 2 songs I don't recommend on this particular album would just be Warship My Wreck and Odds of Even. Should talk about those real quick. Both of those are just kind of sprawling type ones. I feel like they're trying to nail the appeal of like Sweet Dreams just without the cover song aspect of that particular song. I'd have to say were just kind of concepts that just were very looming and just kind of drug binge type songs that just didn't pull out the vibes nearly as sonically pleasingly as they needed to. Both those ones were just lengthier type ones that just kind of felt like stretchers that just didn't nail it that well. So that's both Worship My Wreck and Odds of Even. But every other song on this particular project I recommend full blown, I'd have to say. So talk about some of these, like Killing Strangers, that's the most popular song off this album according to Spotify, and this is like a drooping kind of glam rock sludge of a song, I'd have to say. It's pretty similar to like the Mechanical Animals days. I would definitely feel like this is just like a nice dark kind of hangout hit, I'd have to say. So it's just a good concept. It's just an excellent concept to kind of get some of these hangout type fairs to have some dark. It's just an excellent concept to get some of these dark hangout type songs for you and your buddies as far as that pitch goes. It's a good type of appeal to just kind of have that aspect. There are some smokish type songs. It's not as full blown on display. Like Marilyn Manson, it's not as full blown in the aspect of wanting to just smoke like a few ounces and pitches like that, but it is the concept of just being able to do it just within the aspect of having that extra round as far as that pitching goes. It's just a lot more of an emphatic kind of product, but there are some stellar kind of hangout songs on here. It just has that real kind of ghastly kind of appeal about it. But this is one that definitely reminds me of like I don't like the drugs, but the drugs like me as far as that pitch goes. As far as that pitch goes from Mechanical Animals, the Mephistopheles of Los Angeles is another nice one. Now there's a series of peppy type songs on here that are pretty similar to Third Day of a 7-Day Binge. The Mephistopheles of Los Angeles, Devil Beneath My Feet, and Slave Only Dreams to Be King are four songs that kind of have some of that relative kind of dance club type pep that I was talking about before. But the Mephistopheles of Los Angeles is like an autumn kind of simmering late day commerce of a song, and I'd say it's another Travis type one to kind of get just within the concept of just like some grim type appeal. It's kind of done with work shift, some of that type of appeal, just getting done with it. It's like a grim getting ready to turn up type song. Do appreciate the concept of this one. Kind of a peppy type one. This definitely works for like some autumn makeshift just within the sense of just kind of the concept of it being like 5:30, just got done with, just probably still in your work get up as far as that pitching goes, just getting ready to say, yep, I'm gonna get turned up tonight, go pick up like a bottle of Crown Royal, some pitches like that, call some of my pals, call up some ladies as far as that pitching goes. It's a good concept of just getting ready to turn up just within. I mean, it's a makeshift type song, but it just has that particular concept of having some of that excitement. So this is definitely an exciting type album, which is just different from Marilyn Manson's normal appeal. I mean, he's haunting and he does have some of that craziness, but this just has like the compression. I almost want to say of just like joviality, which is just a strange concept for Marilyn Manson, just within aspect of normally it kind of having just within the normal aspect of it kind of being more grim and such, but this just has some of that joviality towards it. The Devil Beneath My Feet is a nice one. It's like a good grim evening pep, I'd have to say, and this song has some ghastly appeal and it goes well with a handful of the other jive ones on here, the ones I listed. Mephistopheles, Los Angeles, Slave Only Dreams to Be King, Third Day of a 7-Day Binge, some of those type ones. Just some good concepts. A lot of these just have a lot of that. A lot of these just have that overall dance type pep. Just great for like some dance clubs. Just, I mean, some of these, they're not quite as full blown crazy. Like these are not really like ass shakers to the point where you're going to get full blown ferocious and just 10 out of 10 energy, but they definitely are some foot tappers going to have for just relative jive and this moderate kind of just like percolate type bustle as far as that pitching goes. There's some nice ones kind of here just being out and about, I'd have to say. Birds of Hell Waiting is a pretty nice one. It's like a sludgy kind of morose, hella smokage kickback of a song. I'd say it's definitely a great song to smoke with you with your pals as far as that pitching goes. And this is like a dark and morbid kind of gloom stretcher, I'd have to say, and this is a pretty emphatic one. Now, this is one that the two songs I didn't recommend on here, Worship My Wreck and Odds of Even. This is the song that Birds of Hell Waiting is the song that those two songs probably should have been. Has the right length as far as that pitch kind of goes. Has the right length as far as that song pitch kind of goes along with it. Just has the overall aesthetic that just nails it pretty well. I mean, these are just some sludgy type ones that just have the overall lambent and kind of binge like this head trip type feel as far as that pitch can happen. Just some real dark ghastliness to kind of get just for like a relative just kind of morose type hangout just within that relative pitch. Just some good concepts for that, but it just has the overall snap of just being a little bit more like typical Marilyn Manson days from like Sweet Dreams type days, just without the single type appeal of it. I'm glad that Marilyn Manson was able to have some of these stretchers and kind of power ballads. Not necessarily power ballads, but more of like dark stretchers as far as that pitch can have with it. Just some good lambent type tunes to kind of have for like some kickback just within a ghastly kind of autumn type sense and a Halloween type fair, just pitches like that. Then another nice one on here would be Slave Only Dreams to Be King. It's a pretty good concept here. This like a leery kind of rock nightclub bounce of a song. I'd say some good pitches like some of those other ones I mentioned, especially songs like Third Day of a 7-Day Binge. It's like a good pairing with 7-Day Binge. Like I was saying, this is like a decent kind of dance pop. So it's just some good concepts, kind of get some of these Marilyn Manson dance club type songs. Just really appreciate the bounce of some of these. If like normal Marilyn Manson songs like Sweet Dreams, some of those type ones, and I don't love the drugs, but the drugs love me. Some of those type ones, or even some of his other kind of leery type hits as far as that pitch kind of happens, like disposable teens. Some of those type ones that I'd say are kind of wearing thin, not necessarily wearing thin, but just running their course. That I'd say these are some nice ones. Kind of get like some dance club type snaps. Just a good overall kind of aspect of hit appeal. I'd say so. These are just some overall snap type ones. Just the joviality behind it, and just the overall aspect, just having like some of that electricity and just overall sludgy type feel that just works for like a good dark dance club type night just within that relative kind of industrial metal sense. So yeah, that's the concept about this particular album. I am going to give this album like a 9 out of 10, which is a pretty good pitch. The social score, that's kind of tricky though. I think I'm going to give the social score like a 10 out of 10. I feel like the overall impact, all these songs, there's some promotional singles on here. I feel like songs like Devil Beneath My Feet, and the Mephistopheles, Los Angeles. I feel like songs like The Devil Beneath My Feet and the Mephistopheles, Los Angeles, there's some extra promotional type singles that kind of had some radio airplay. You might catch those on particular radio stations if you're lucky, pitches like that, even though it's been 10 years. Still, I'd have to say it's a pretty awesome album just to get the dark aesthetic of this particular product. It's pretty sheer and just blistering. It has the overall songwriting snap, just overall instrumentation for the most part, just overall haunting aesthetic, the character, the charisma, things like that. So overall nails it. This is a great album for like some dark kind of autumn. This is an overall awesome album for like some dark autumn makeshift as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. And this also has some good dance club type songs to kind of get within that relative pitch as far as that would kind of happen. Just overall the appeal behind this album is pretty sheer and just the impact of it, it's just pretty large. Just returned Marilyn Manson to the spotlight for a while. Has some good promotion, some good overall aesthetic. It's a fun album, pitches like that, has some good energy, despite the fact that it's not sheer full blown manic Marilyn Manson like from his 90s days and early 2000s days. I still would have to say this overall has the appeal, just the aesthetic and the charisma of how this album handles this dark makeshift is just pretty awesome. I have to say, so that's a good concept. But basically, in terms of the future, like Marilyn Manson has not put out an album since the fall of 2020, just between the controversy with folks of the ladies that have kind of come against him as far as that pitch has kind of happened. But hopefully, we do get some more Marilyn Manson. But this is the last one here. I'd have to say there is like a tour album, there is like a live album that came out in 1999 that I want to get to. It might be on Spotify as far as that pitch kind of goes. That would kind of be like the last one as far as that pitch kind of happens with every last thing that Marilyn Manson's done. But I reviewed every album now, so you can check that out within the playlist as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. Just some excellent type concepts to kind of get here. I would definitely have to say it's just a pretty ghastly overall appeal. Most of these albums by Marilyn Manson, I've given like a 10 out of 10. This one gets a 9. It's not to say that this is a bad album just because it doesn't get a 10. Does not mean that this is any sort of like a slight of a project. It's definitely a great project just to cap off the rest of the Marilyn Manson albums that I've reviewed as far as that pitch goes. Another basic classic within his catalog. I'd have to say I do recommend it quite a bit. And I do highly recommend to check out the Marilyn Manson playlist, including like one of his artists that he put on with this label, which was Godhead. So some of that stuff. So there's plenty of good stuff in the Marilyn Manson playlist. I would fuck with some of those, but definitely fuck with this project here because it's definitely a pretty sheer one.